Greetings. In this DVD, I'd like to show you the ways to make the three boot patterns that I offer. One is the center seam. Also there's one I call a tug and snug, and Bellows Tongue. Most of my samples are of center seam. It seems that that's what I like to wear. Here's an example of a center seam made in leather. It's made with bull hide, and I skived this front seam thoroughly and then stitched it, turned the edges to the inside when I was stitching it, and cemented the little seam strip on each side to the upper, and then stitched again on each of those turned in seams. So it makes a nice neat seam. This boot I have to have some way to make it expand so that the foot can fit inside. So this has a back opening, and at first I just had holes back here, and it was so challenging to get the laces tightened up that I put these little fast loops on to make it a little speedier to get the boot on and off. I'm still not real crazy about that. I think if I were making these boots over, I would just put a zipper on the inside of it. Here's another center seam. This one is made from a couple sweaters. They were felted in the washing machine, and then I did a little bit of stitching on them to kind of quilt them. And in this DVD, I'm going to stitch this to sew with an edge. So you can see that I haven't done that yet, that the sole has a rigid heel piece back here, and then a suede piece to cover it, and then through here we have the suede strip. And you also notice that I used a piece of 100% wool. I guess you can't tell it by looking, but it is 100% wool felt sole to stitch my upper to, and then when I sit it down inside the sole with an edge, it's nice and squared away, and you don't have to be concerned about getting it in there straight. This children's boot is a snug boot. Snug because in this pattern you have a choice of either cutting down further enough in the vamp so that you could get your foot on, you could get your shoe on without opening or closing anything. So that would be the tug, just tug the boot on. But this one is snug, closer to the leg. That means that there needs to be some kind of opening. And so this opening has Velcro, is that familiar sound, that closes this boot, but there could be all kinds of buttons, loops, ties around here. That's where you get the chance to do your creations of ways in which you can close this boot. And of course it depends so much what kind of material you make the boot out of. Here we have what I consider glorious handmade felt, wet felt, and I'm so fortunate to have a few pieces of this so that I can make a little sample boot here for you. And this one is in a soles with an edge. It has a heel support back there. When I initially made it, I just made this as a stitch down, just had it turned out, and that's fine for kids' boots and shoes, but I do like the way that it looks, and a little more protection to it, to the felt, to the handmade felt, and I like the look. This was made from upholstery fabric, and this was made for somebody that had a wider calf and higher instep, so the boot was customized for her, and you can see we've got snaps that close it, and so you can imagine all the upholstery materials that there are. Not only upholstery material, but canvas that can be painted, so many ways that you can make a boot like this on your own. And to finish it off, then this one has the soles with an edge attached. Here's a sheepskin boot. So you can use the same center seam pattern, but add a 1/2 inch or so, depending upon how thick your sheepskin is. Add a 1/2 inch to the seams, and you can make sheepskin footwear. I like it covered with suede. It really gives it a durability that just plain sheepskin I don't think would have. And I took this Tibetan pattern from a picture of a Tibetan boot that I saw. And then this has the soles with an edge. Here's another leather boot. This one has the zipper and is a stitch down, so the upper is turned out and stitched to the sole. And here I hid the seam where the two halves come together with a skived down, so a thin piece of the same leather, and strip at the back. This is a pair that I wear the most. Anytime I want to be cool, I put these boots on. And so this is a center seam. This was a coat that I found at a thrift store, and I thought it was a style that nobody was really ever going to wear again. It had, high, tight armpits, and so it just didn't look very usable by someone else. So I was really happy to have this purple coat, and so I put it in the wash machine on hot in the longest cycle, and maybe a couple times through the cycles, and with detergent. And then after it was washed and I could see that it was felted nicely, then I put it in the dryer to felt it even more. Then use the center seam pattern to cut it out. And I had some pieces of silk and a little bit of handmade felt here that I integrated in with it. So as you can see, the boots aren't quite the same, but of course when you're trying to be cool, that's a really fun way to go, to have things that don't quite match. So what's left here are some samples. These aren't ones that have actually been worn. They're mock-ups that I've made so that people that take classes in working with felt can try on. So first I'll take the gray one. So this is this is a clog. So this is cut down a little lower. It could be even lower. It could be cut all the way down. And this doesn't have a sole on it yet, so this would be more like a slipper. As I said, it's really something for just to try on, so that a student will know that if they cut up their handmade felt, that it's going to fit if they use the same pattern of one of these mock-ups that fits. And I'm going to show you, I don't have this stitched yet, but this is the same pattern of center seam, but more higher cut, so this is like a shoe, and it doesn't go all the way up, so there's a little opening here, so you can comfortably get your foot in. And I'm going to stitch this to the sole with an edge, but to display it for you, I just made a little tie here at the front, and then out of a little scrap I had of orange thread, and then I thought, ooh, I really like that. So I would never have thought that I would put a gray felt center seam on a brown sew with the edge and stitch with orange thread, but that just gives you the example of the incredible amount of freedom you have when you're making your own shoes, that whether it's color or texture or design, there's so many options that you have. Believe me, I've done this for 20 years and I haven't run out of options yet, that you can make when you get going with shoemaking. And this again is a mock-up, and I wanted to show you the Bellows Tongue. And unfortunately this is, I used cheap felt from the fabric store and doubled it up, so I used a spray adhesive on it and then made Bellows Tongue boots for people to try on in classes as well. And I really like this style because it can take all different widths of legs, so you can customize it to whatever width that you need around your ankle and calf. I also like the shoe that you can make from this. So it's kind of the hush puppy type of thing. And so you can see that's the same thing. And then also you can make a loafer out of that.